The story begins in the year 2020, when strange dimensional rifts called gates began appearing all over the world. These gates connected Earth to another realm, shattering the peace of every nation. Government sent countless soldiers inside, hoping to investigate. But none of them ever returned. No one could bring back a report. No one knew what lay beyond. Soon after, monsters began pouring out of these gates, beasts that couldn't be killed by modern weapons or suppressed with any known technology. The world plunged into chaos. Entire cities fell. Countless lives were lost. Then, something shifted. A group of humans began awakening. They were blessed with powers, gifts from beings beyond comprehension, known only as sponsors. These humans, now called hunters, became humanity's only means of retaliation. The hunters grew stronger. Their powers deepened. Among them was one man who rose above all others. He commanded not just strength, but an army of avatars. He could not die. His power continued to grow with each battle. They called him the Demon King. He wasn't bound to any sponsor. He possessed a unique trait, the player, which allowed him to evolve through combat alone. While the other 12 strongest hunters began calling themselves gods, the Demon King continued rising. Fearing his power, they joined forces and defeated him. After his execution, they established a new order called Eden. In this world, hunters were recognized as a new superior race, and those without powers were relegated to slavery. They rewrote history. The Demon King's name was buried. 100 years passed. Hunters ruled the earth, and those without powers learned to submit. In the present, a young man trains relentlessly. He keeps hitting his limits, trying to surpass himself, desperate to be noticed by a sponsor. He believes that only through awakening can he change his fate. His coach, Xianggu, watches him closely. He knows the world is unfair. He knows that becoming a hunter isn't just about talent, it's about breaking past every weakness. He sees that the boy is different. His parents were killed by a hunter. All that remained was a mysterious book, a keepsake that now fuels his desire to uncover the truth. Within its pages are names, deeds, and corruption. It's a record of what the hunters have done, what they've hidden. But doubt grows stronger every day. The young man wonders if he'll ever awaken. Maybe he's not meant to. Maybe fate just isn't on his side. Even so, Xianggu remains firm. He believes the boy will become a hunter, and he urges him to protect that book. It will be needed to change the world someday. What they don't realize is that the book holds more than secrets. It might be the autobiography of the Demon King, the one true hero banished by the gods, erased from history. While the two of them are talking, something unexpected happens. A powerful huntress descends, targeting the boy directly. Xianggu's instincts flare instantly. He moves to protect his student, throwing himself into the path of the attack. The huntress is none other than Athena, the ruler of Eden, one of the 12 heroes who now govern the world as gods. As she arrives, all hunters in the area drop to their knees. Their bodies move against their will. Even the boy can't resist. Something about her presence overrides everything. Athena surveys the area, searching for her target. She orders her minions to scour the surroundings and bring the target to her. Then, she turns toward him. There's no visible power coming from his body. She doubts he could be the one she's looking for. Maybe he's just another insignificant slave. But something about him holds her attention. Something faint, but strange. The boy thinks about the book, about the truths it holds. He knows it's what they want to hide more than anything else. That fear is all over his face. Athena senses it and steps closer. She commands him to hand it over. His limbs betray him. They no longer listen to his will. The divine command forces his hand. Trembling, he pulls out the book, the one that could unravel the foundation of Eden itself. She takes it. He fears what will happen next. That once she reads it, she'll kill everyone tied to him, or destroy the entire city just to erase its contents. As Athena prepares to strike him down, Xianggu returns, blasting her away with a surprise counterattack. He grabs the book and brings it back to his student, eyes filled with emotion. He tells him not to cry. Not now. He's grown. A man. The boy doesn't understand how Xianggu could fight someone like Athena, one of the 12 sovereigns. But there's no time for answers. Xianggu didn't expect her to attack so soon. He says he's willing to bet everything on someone who wants to change the world, a world now built on slaves and lies. Then Athena charges again, calling Xianggu by a different name, Heimdall. It becomes clear, Xianggu isn't just a coach. He's someone who once stood at the pinnacle of power, and now the boy is faced with a choice. If he accepts the power being offered to him, the world as he knows it will begin to change. He says yes. The moment the contract is accepted, Heimdall plunges the sword into him, not to kill, but to activate the pact. A sponsor has chosen him. The sky trembles. The sky of the apocalypse descends. No blood, no wound, but he feels it, the change inside him. Something has awakened. When he opens his eyes, he's no longer in the same world. He's already inside a gate. The moment he regains awareness, the world around him feels different. Echoes bounce off the stone walls, and heavy air presses down on his shoulders. He's inside a gate, thrown straight into a dungeon without any warning. Then, he hears footsteps. A goblin emerges. Even though goblins are considered the lowest tier of monsters, they're still incredibly dangerous. They're known for their sharp senses, quick movements, and their habit of swarming in groups, earning them the nickname beginner hunter killers. The protagonist hopes it doesn't notice him, that it will walk away. But when the goblin picks up his scent and begins tracking him, there's no choice left. He grabs a small pebble from the ground and remembers the training from his student days, back when he trained under Seongu, also known as Heimdall. With careful precision, he tosses the pebble to distract the goblin. As it turns its head, he uses his hand as a weapon and strikes with a killing blow straight to its head. He didn't expect it to be so effective. All he wanted was to steal its weapon. Suddenly, a notification appears. The sky of the apocalypse is now watching him. Before he has time to understand what's happening, a swarm of goblins comes rushing in, and this time, they're not alone. The goblin chieftain, the dungeon's boss, is with them. It feels like everything's over. He wants to give up. But then he remembers Heimdall, his coach who risked everything for him, and the promise he made. Something inside him reignites. With his sponsor's attention and encouragement, he charges into the horde. Sword in hand, he slices through one goblin after another. They fall before him, one by one, until none remain, except for the chieftain. As it looms in front of him, a memory flashes across his mind. His training days, when he fought to become stronger. In that moment, something changes. He receives the Spear of the Demon King, granted by the authority of his sponsor. It's not just a weapon, it's a symbol of power. With it, he pierces through the goblin chieftain like it's nothing. The battle ends. He levels up, but his body pays the price. Exhaustion and fear crash into him all at once. His knees buckle, and he collapses, bloodied and unconscious. Later, a group of hunters finds him lying in the dungeon. They're shocked that he's still breathing. They call him a survivor. When he wakes up, he's in a hospital. Healing potions are running through his veins. Everything that happened wasn't a dream. The sky of the apocalypse's rule over fire was the only reason he survived. Though he suffered serious injuries and fainted during the fight, he was rescued by hunters who had been dispatched to shut the gate. As he tries to sit up, a nurse enters and explains the situation. He was found by a guild called League, who brought him to the hospital for treatment. She also notes how lucky he is to have survived. His injuries were severe. Then she adds something that stuns him. It's the year 2022. That means he's been transported 100 years into the past, back to the early days of Gates, the age when special hunters were first beginning to make their mark. The age of heroes. Trying to stay calm, he tells the nurse that he feels better and asks for directions to the bathroom. She guides him, clearly nervous around him. Inside, he looks in the mirror and freezes. His body has changed. He's taller, stronger, bulkier, muscular. It's still his face, but everything else feels like a new person. While he's processing the transformation, a man from the Hunter Association walks in. His name is Kim Sung, and he's here to ask questions. How did he get inside the gate? What's his name? But the protagonist knows. There's no way they'll find anything about him. He's a different person now, with no identity in this time. So, without thinking, he gives a new name. Lee Jun-bion, a name that mixes his own with the Demon King's. He doesn't know why he said it, but somehow, it feels right. When asked if he remembers anything, he claims he doesn't. He says he heard a voice offering him a sponsorship, and then everything went black. Kim Sung is visibly shaken by that answer. He leaves, saying the association will be in touch again soon. Lee is now an important individual. Once alone, Lee opens his status window. This is the reason the 12 heroes feared the Demon King. This is the reason they tried to erase every trace of him. The status window wasn't given to normal hunters. It was unique to the player, the trait that allowed growth without a sponsor, a trait that let someone evolve just through combat. And now, Lee has it. The nurse returns, congratulating him on awakening as a hunter. She's clearly impressed. Becoming a hunter is considered a lottery win in this world. She talks about the different paths available, crafting magical weapons as a blacksmith, becoming a high-paid bodyguard, and more. But Lee isn't celebrating. He knows the truth behind the glamour. Normal people have been stripped of their rights. Eden has turned hunters into gods, and everyone else into tools. Before leaving, the nurse gives him a bag of clothes. They were sent by someone named Su Young, a representative from the association. His old clothes were ruined during the dungeon fight. As Lee finishes changing, he steps outside, and for the first time he walks the streets of the Age of Heroes, a time he wasn't even allowed to dream of entering back in his old life. As Lee takes in the sights of this unfamiliar yet historic city, a voice calls out to him. It's Agent Su Young, the one who sent the clothes. She says she's been waiting for him and is here to escort him to the association for formal registration. She explains that the association will help him settle in, they'll even arrange housing, Cases of amnesia aren't unheard of when someone awakens inside a gate. But what surprises Lee most is when she casually mentions his rank, C rank. Starting out as a C rank hunter is incredibly rare. Most awakened individuals are evaluated much lower. The association sees him as valuable, and they're eager to register him properly. Inside the Hunter Association building, Lee finishes his paperwork and registration. The process is smooth, efficient. Rank evaluation usually comes later for most, but for someone like him, with feats already recorded from the gate, exceptions are made. Once the formalities are over, Soo Young personally takes him to his new apartment. As he steps inside, emotion overwhelms him. It's his first real home, a place of his own, safe, peaceful, warm. For someone who had nothing in his past life, it's hard to process so many good things happening all at once. As he reflects silently, Soo Young breaks the moment with another update. Someone wants to meet him. Lee tenses. Is someone suspicious of him? Soo Young clarifies. It's the guildmaster of the Lee Guild, the same guild that rescued him from the dungeon. Hearing the name, Lee nods in understanding. He agrees to the meeting. What he doesn't expect is who walks in. Standing before him is his old coach, Shang-gu, alive, well, and very real. The moment their eyes meet, Lee stares at his coach's bald head, stunned. He never imagined their reunion would happen so soon, and under such strange circumstances. Shang-gu narrows his eyes, studying Lee's face. He asks if they've met before, because Lee looks strangely familiar. But Lee can't say the truth. He simply bows and explains that he lost all his memories before becoming a hunter. He offers his respect. Shang-gu was once thought to be dead, Heimdall, a figure wiped from history. And yet, here he is, alive in the past. That night, Lee lies awake in thought. He examines his body, noting small details. The same moles, the same frame. It is definitely his old body. Somehow, he has traveled back in time and inherited the power of the Demon King. And the one sponsoring him is the Sky of the Apocalypse, a sponsor known to have chosen only one person before. He realizes he now possesses the power to truly reshape the world. The next morning, Lee joins the association's regular class session. The tutor enters and introduces himself as Bae Sang-soo, a B-rank hunter and a respected figure within the association. The students are shocked. Someone of his rank personally teaching newcomers is rare. Whispers start to circulate. Why is someone this important here? They suspect a new recruit must have caught the association's attention, but no one knows who. The tutor announces that they'll be attending a seminar and participating in a combat exam later once they've selected their weapons. It's all part of the standard training process. He starts by asking questions about how hunters are created. At first, the students are excited to answer, but as the questions become more complex, hands start to drop. Silence spreads through the room. Then, the tutor notices Lee. He hasn't said a word, hasn't reacted, just silently observing. So he calls on him directly. There's no right answer to the question, he says. Just speak freely. Lee thinks for a moment and answers. He says that sponsors don't give powers out of kindness or justice. They do it for entertainment. The room freezes. Everyone is stunned. No one expected that answer. The tutor pauses. He doesn't dismiss it. In fact, he calls it an unconventional idea, but interesting. According to the Demon King's old writings, sponsors treat this world like a game, and people like Lee, those who say it aloud, become targets. The conversation ends, and the group moves on to weapon selection and sparring. Each student steps forward to face their first opponent, a goblin. The monsters used in this exercise have been magically conditioned not to kill, but they're still dangerous enough to challenge new hunters. One girl steps in first. Though she's nervous and exhausted by the fight, she manages to counter and finish the goblin, earning praise from the tutor. Then comes the final participant, Lee. He enters the pit carrying a spear and shield, a combination known as the signature style of the Demon King. The tutor notices and seems impressed by his choice. Lee tries to stay focused. Tomorrow is the graduation exam, but today matters too. A strong performance now will build momentum. But there's a problem. All the goblins have already been defeated. To keep things fair, the tutor decides to test him against something else. Lee doesn't think much of it. He assumes it'll be another low-level monster, something similar to goblins or kobolds. He's wrong. The tutor brings in an orc. The entire training center goes silent. No newbie has ever faced an orc during training. It's unheard of. But the tutor explains. There have been hunters who awakened at B rank on their first day, and one of them is now one of the strongest in the world. Lee, on the other hand, cleared a D rank gate and defeated a goblin chieftain solo, despite being labeled a C rank. So, they begin. As soon as Lee locks eyes with the orc, he feels something stir. His sponsor, the Sky of the Apocalypse, focuses its gaze on him once again. The orc charges. Lee counters, slicing through its flesh and drawing blood. He thinks the fight will be simple, but the orc suddenly grabs his spear with raw force. It retaliates, throwing heavy punches against Lee's shield. Each blow shakes his arm, threatening to break his guard. The other students look on in horror. The tutor realizes how dangerous this is. Most students would have died already. But Lee, despite being pushed back, refuses to fall. He quickly retreats, creating distance, then lunges forward, kicking the orc in the face, knocking out its teeth. And then, with one final blast from his burning shield, he blows the orc's head apart. The crowd stares in disbelief. The tutor is speechless. Lee didn't even chant a skill, he just acted. And yet, the way his attack worked, the way the fire burst, it wasn't a skill. It felt like something else, something higher. He realizes what it is. Lee didn't use a skill, he used an authority. The training session comes to an end, but Bae Sang-soo can't take his eyes off Lee. He's witnessed something rare, something dangerous. A student only recently awakened just displayed an authority-level power without any chanting. He knows immediately. Lee is someone the association cannot afford to lose. Lee is given full marks and officially clears the tutorial phase. But even as he celebrates the small victory, he begins to notice something strange. His weapons can't withstand his power. They're starting to show signs of wear. Even he's surprised by how overwhelming his fire-based authority has become. The authority he wields isn't a typical skill. It's something deeper, more ancient. Rule over fire, a trait once belonging to the Demon King, isn't bound by cooldowns or casting rituals. It's a force of nature, a destructive truth. As the training winds down, Shang-gu, Heimdall, visits Lee's apartment. He hesitates for a moment, unsure if it's appropriate to show up uninvited. But when the door opens and Lee welcomes him in, the awkwardness fades. The two sit down and chat as food is delivered. Others from the association join as well. That's when Miss Soo-yeon, the agent assigned to Lee, announces something. Lee has officially been assigned to a graduation exam, his final step before being recognized as a full-fledged hunter. She tells him not to worry. For someone like him, it should be easy. Shang-gu also brings up a personal offer. He's serious about recruiting Lee into the League Guild. It's the brightest guild in the country, and they're offering him a place. Not as a mere member, but with great potential for growth. But Lee turns it down. Shang-gu doesn't understand at first. The opportunity is massive. Why say no? Lee has his reasons. He's from the future, and he knows how dangerous it would be to become tied to any guild, especially in this early era where everything is corrupt beneath the surface. He politely declines, but adds that he'll always come to Shang-gu's aid if needed. The offer is rejected, but Shang-gu doesn't take offense. If anything, his respect for Lee grows. Their bond seems almost too natural, something Miss Soo-yeon finds hard to believe. How could a newbie, just days into being a hunter, have such familiarity and trust with someone like Heimdall? The next day arrives. The Hunter Association begins its graduation exam. All the trainees gather at the gate's entrance as Bae Sang-soo steps forward once again to brief them. He explains the process. They'll be entering a gate together, but this time, he will accompany them to ensure their safety. Despite the assurance, many students are still anxious. Bae Sang-soo's presence alone is overwhelming. His magic pressure affects everyone around him, and Lee finds it strange that someone like him is still listed as a B rank. Something doesn't add up. Once everyone receives their gear, they enter the gate. Immediately, Lee senses something unusual. The air inside is heavy, thick with magic. The instructor confirms that it's high-density mana, far more intense than what they've trained with before. As they move deeper, they encounter goblins. Bae Sang-soo instructs the students to engage. He calls out student numbers, assigning groups to fight different goblin clusters. Number 1 and 3 step up, then 6 and 16. Each pair performs well, dispatching their enemies under pressure. Then, it's Lee's turn. The moment he moves, everyone around him goes quiet. He moves too fast, too clean. He slices through goblins effortlessly. Group after group, they fall before him. The other students start murmuring, "How is someone this good still in training?" His precision, his form, his instincts, none of it makes sense. Even Bae Sang-soo realizes the truth. Lee shouldn't be here. He's operating on a completely different level. He needs to be recruited, immediately. Meanwhile, Lee is deep in thought. He continues to level up through each kill. The system keeps rewarding him. But this isn't just about experience or stats. He's testing something. What if the Demon King had grown just a bit faster in his own time? What if he had outpaced the 12 before they could kill him? That thought fuels Lee. He promises himself, this time, it will be different. After the wave of goblins is cleared, Bae Sang-soo warns the group, the boss will appear soon. Unlike the goblins, this one will be stronger, smarter. They're told to regroup, drink potions, and inspect their weapons. Lee, however, is already focused. His eyes sharpen. He's preparing mentally, already picturing the upcoming battle. They move deeper into the dungeon. Suddenly, an overwhelming pressure fills the air. The boss has arrived. It's a high-tier monster. Its presence alone makes the students flinch. Bae Sang-soo immediately orders them to retreat, realizing that this isn't a normal boss. Its class rivals that of a B-rank hunter, which should be impossible in a gate like this. He positions himself to defend them. The boss attacks, fangs laced with destructive energy, and then Lee appears, shielding the others from the attack. The instructor is impressed, but confused. The attack should have shredded him, yet he stands firm. Then, a voice echoes in Lee's mind. It's the sky of the apocalypse. His sponsor gives him a directive: eliminate the goblin archmage. Everyone around him panics. They know that a boss of this level shouldn't even exist in a dungeon like this. Something has gone terribly wrong with the gate's evaluation. Even B.A. Sang-soo admits that it might be too much for him. He tells the students to run, saying he'll hold the boss off. But Lee steps forward. He wants to fight it alone. Everyone is stunned. The instructor warns him. The goblin archmage uses powerful magic, not brute force. It's unlike anything he's faced before. But Lee is resolute. He knows this dungeon was created for students. He knows the risk, but he also knows what he must do. The battle begins. The archmage unleashes fireballs at him, blazing with intensity. But instead of dodging, Lee absorbs them. The instructor is shocked. He didn't block the spells. He took them in. How? Lee closes the distance. The boss erects a magical barrier to protect itself, but Lee responds by slicing through it with his splitting technique, completely destroying the defense. As smoke fills the room, he pushes forward, charging straight into the boss and driving his spear through its body. The battle ends. The students are left in stunned silence. They begin shouting, calling him a super rookie. And in that moment, the sky of the apocalypse smiles and sends another blessing. Lee is granted the ability to summon an avatar. His journey has only just begun. The news of Lee's overwhelming graduation performance didn't stay hidden for long. Word reached even the president of the Hunter Association, prompting him to summon B.A.E. Sang-soo for a direct briefing. When asked if Lee was comparable to Chiwoo, one of their top-tier hunters, B.A.E. didn't hesitate. He claimed that Lee was far beyond that bar, possibly someone out of this world. Curious about this evaluation, the president asked about Lee's highest potential. B.A. Sang-soo responded that it might actually be possible for Lee to achieve his goals, which only deepened the president's interest. A smile formed on his lips. He couldn't wait to meet Lee in person. The next morning, Guildmaster Shanggu and Agent Suyeon arrived outside Lee's apartment. Suyeon expressed her concern about the raid. The gate's classification had suddenly risen, and she had been worried for Lee's safety, but seeing him well brought her some relief. Shanggu brought up the recruitment offer again. But to everyone's surprise, Lee revealed that B.A.E. Sang-soo had already extended an invitation to join the association itself, a rare opportunity that left even Suyeon shocked. Despite how glamorous and promising the offer was, Lee turned it down. The instructor tried to be understanding, but Lee had his reasons. If he joined the association, there was a risk he wouldn't be able to hide his secrets. And more importantly, the person he wanted to avoid most was the very man at the top, the association's president. After the conversation, Shanggu and Lee went out for lunch like old friends. After returning to his apartment, Lee sat quietly, lost in thought. The events inside the dungeon kept replaying in his mind. Each moment was a reminder he was growing stronger every single day. But what stood out most was the avatar ability. No normal hunter could summon avatars. In fact, even among the 12 heroes, only 1 or 2 had ever managed to do it. That alone spoke volumes. The Demon King's legacy granted him the power to summon fearsome monsters, legendary beings like the Bone Dragon, Balrog, and Kerberos. Lee couldn't help but wonder, would he receive the same summoning authority? Would the sky of the apocalypse bestow those same facilities upon him? He had to know. So after some thought, he attempted a summoning. Not just a test, but a real trial, calling forth one of the creature types the Demon King once commanded. This would be the first step in discovering what kind of summons were available to him. The next morning, the public began to take notice. An article was published about his incredible feats during the training phase. Though it didn't mention his name directly, the details were unmistakable. His agent, Miss Suyeon, was visibly impressed. She complimented him on his performance, acknowledging how rare it was to see a rookie stand out so clearly. Lee noticed something odd. The newspaper carefully avoided naming him outright, but that didn't matter. He already knew the truth. The Hunter Association was well aware of who he was. They were just keeping things quiet for now. As the conversation with Miss Suyeon continued, Lee told her he wanted to begin dungeon raids right away. She didn't object. Soon, Lee was once again battling goblins inside a new gate. Each fight pushed him forward. Each kill granted him experience. He continued to level up while receiving the blessings of his sponsor. But something odd happened. Even after clearing the entire dungeon and defeating the boss, there was no response from the summoning ability. When he tried to summon an avatar, the sky of the apocalypse gave him a subtle clue: the summoned creature needed to have a soul. That changed everything. Until now, he assumed monsters were enough, but that condition meant he couldn't summon just anything. The criteria were more specific and possibly more dangerous. After the raid, Lee turned over his weapons to Miss Suyeon. She would handle the sale of all loot from the dungeon on his behalf. She then mentioned something troubling. There were no more suitable dungeons available for him. Confused, Lee asked why. Suyeon explained that a certain guild had recently been expanding aggressively. They had pre-booked more than 20 low-ranked dungeons at once, making it difficult for anyone else to access them. Lee's eyes narrowed. He asked if the guildmaster was Choi Young-sung. Suyeon confirmed it. It was the North Army Guild. Lee immediately realized what that meant. He knew exactly what was coming. He'd already lived through the consequences in the future, and now, the moment of their first meeting was approaching fast. In the following days, Lee began anticipating the inevitable meeting with the War King, Gunther the man fated to become his enemy. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the cracks in society were already showing. A group of people had gathered to protest construction orders enforced by none other than the War King himself, but Gunther wasn't interested in their complaints. To him, the general public were nothing more than ants. Letting them live was already a mercy in his eyes. Lee had seen this tyranny before. In his past life, Gunther's cruelty had reduced his own village's population by half. That memory still burned within him. As Lee walked through the city, he witnessed a scene that made his blood boil. A group of thugs, minor hunters, were harassing an old man. The man begged them not to destroy his property, clearly powerless to defend himself. But they didn't care. They laughed, ready to wreck everything. Lee stepped in. He demanded to know what they were doing. His calm presence was enough to make them hesitate, until one of them decided to respond with force. He activated his hunter power and moved to attack. But Lee responded instantly. He knocked the man down like a toy. The other pulled out a knife. Lee warned him not to act recklessly. Hunters using weapons on civilians was a punishable offense. But the man didn't listen. He lunged at Lee. Big mistake. Lee dodged and countered, leaving both men sprawled on the ground. Afterward, he calmly contacted the authorities to report the incident. Suyeon praised him. What he did was not only right, it was lawful. Injuring civilians was a serious felony, especially with eyewitnesses present. But Lee had more questions. He asked if the guilds could interfere with the situation, if they might retaliate against the old man. Suyeon assured him that wouldn't happen. The association would be monitoring the entire case. Then, she revealed something disturbing. The two hunters who attacked the old man were from the North Army Guild, the same guild Lee had asked about the day before. Now everything clicked. The only way the North Army could have secured so many dungeons was with the association's silent approval. The corruption ran deep. Lee knew this was just the beginning, and it was only a matter of time before they clashed. 2 days later, the consequences began. Lee was summoned by the Hunter Association not as a witness, but as the accused. He had been reported as the assailant in the incident with the old man. Exactly as he expected, things had been flipped upside down. And to make matters worse, the old man, the very person Lee had saved, had changed his testimony. Now, the attacker was being painted as the victim. Suyeon tried to reassure Lee. She insisted the association wasn't entirely corrupted, not yet. But Lee knew better. He came from the future. He had seen the truth. The association had been rotten since its very foundation. Inside the association building, the interrogation began. The authorities questioned him about the incident with the two hunters and the old man. But before that, they brought up something else, his identity. They asked about the time he was rescued by the League Guild's master. They were trying to dig deeper. Then the real accusations began. They claimed Lee had threatened the old man, pressured him to give false testimony, and caused a public disturbance. Lee denied it all, calmly, firmly. Cross-examination followed. The old man, Lee Man-soo, was brought into the room. Lee immediately saw the fear in his eyes. He had clearly been threatened, forced to lie. Lee did his best to make the man feel safe, but it was no use. The testimony had already been changed. The case was now stacked against him. As the questioning ended, Lee pulled out his phone. He had recorded everything. The real events. The truth. It was the one safeguard he had evidence, prepared just in case. Still, he knew the cost. The old man would be punished for perjury. And right now, Lee didn't have enough power or influence to protect him. Not yet. After leaving the building, Lee met with Shang-gu, who had rushed over after hearing what happened. Suyeon had contacted him. They didn't have many allies inside the association, but she trusted him. Lee thanked them both. Then, unexpectedly, the old man himself appeared. He fell to the ground, sobbing, begging Lee for forgiveness. He explained everything. The North Army Guild had threatened to kill his granddaughter. He had no choice but to lie. Hearing this, Suyeon was furious. Even Shang-gu was deeply unsettled. But Shang-gu promised to take responsibility. As the guildmaster of the League Guild, he assured Lee that the North Army Guild wouldn't touch the old man again. Not while he was around. Lee remained quiet, but inside, he was burning with resolve. He had made the recording for one reason. He had seen this kind of tragedy too many times in his past life. If he wanted to change the future, he would need more than strength. He would need proof, power, and a plan. While they were still talking, the leader of the North Army Guild suddenly showed up. He wanted to know what connection Shang-gu had with the super rookie, clearly referring to Lee. Suyeon was surprised. It felt like someone from the association had leaked Li's private information. The man introduced himself as Choi Young-seong, the guildmaster. He shook hands with Li, but Shang-gu stepped in, warning him not to make enemies with them. Shang-gu made it clear that if Choi tried anything funny, he wouldn't sit back quietly. The tension was high. After the encounter, Suyeon was angry. The North Army Guild had just gotten away with everything, only paying a small fine. Li wasn't surprised. In the future, hunters like them were never punished, no matter what they did. Still, thanks to Shang-gu, the old man was let go with just a warning. Li realized how much Shang-gu had done for him. Without him, none of this could have gone the way it did. For now, the North Army Guild stayed quiet, but Li knew it wouldn't last. Gunther, the leader, was a tyrant in the future, known for wiping out anyone who got in his way. He was sure Gunther wouldn't forget what happened. Li asked Suyeon to keep an eye on the guild's movements. He wasn't going to let this go either. He believed in paying people back for what they did, in full. Soon after, Li did something surprising. He asked Shang-gu to join him in a gate raid. Shang-gu was shocked, but excited. It was an honor for his guild to fight alongside Li, especially after they had once rescued him. At the guild base, Shang-gu introduced Li to the team. These were the same people who had helped him back then. But strangely, Li didn't remember any of their faces or names. It hit him, just like the Demon King. Heimdall and his allies had been erased from history. As the raid began, Li was amazed. Everyone had their own fighting styles and powers. Shang-gu was especially impressive, cutting down enemies with a blazing sword. Li couldn't help but admire him. The guild members were excited to see Li's abilities too. He didn't even need to say spell names out loud to use skills, something no ordinary hunter could do. They were shocked. It was clear now. Li wasn't using just skills. He had an authority. After clearing the dungeon, everyone was in awe. The guild even offered to make Li their vice guild master. But Li politely refused. He had bigger goals. Shang-gu respected his decision, knowing Li was aiming for something far greater. Just then, Li received a message. The Hunter Association wanted him to help with a large-scale gate mission. The timing was suspicious. It looked like Choi Young-song was pulling strings behind the scenes. Suyeon worried. 100 hunters had already joined the mission, including many from the North Army Guild. She felt something wasn't right. Li agreed. It felt like the start of something dangerous, something hidden. Later, Li met with Jang In-chong, one of the top members of the North Army Guild. In-chong warned Li to back out of the mission, saying it was dangerous. Li quickly realized In-chong knew something. Maybe the guild was planning something terrible. When Li mentioned the term Chaos Guild, In-cheong got angry and drew his weapon, but stopped himself. Li clearly knew more than he should. Somehow, he even knew about a mysterious figure that had changed everything in the guild. In-chong was also known as the immortal Siegfried, a powerful warrior with a tragic future. Li was determined to win him over, no matter what. He believed In-chong's heart was in the right place, and that was what mattered most. After that meeting, he focused on his own growth. He knew he needed better weapons, something worthy of the power he was carrying. His current gear couldn't keep up with the authority of rule over fire. That's when he found a blacksmith shop, a simple, quiet place that looked like something out of a medieval fantasy world. Inside, a man was hammering away at a blade. His name was Brock Park Jioyan. In the future, he would become the greatest blacksmith alive, known as the hero of blacksmiths, and one of the few who became something close to a dwarf after awakening as a hunter. Li waited 4 hours without saying a word. When Brock finally noticed him, he was confused. Why wait this long just to see him? Li pointed to a strange-looking hammer on the shelf and asked if someone else worked here. That question caught Brock off guard. Li's eye for detail was too sharp. When Brock asked what he wanted, Li answered simply, "My sponsor told me to come find you." That was all it took to change everything. At first, Brock didn't believe him. A sponsor giving direct instructions to a hunter? That was rare enough. But telling him to go to a blacksmith? That was unheard of. But as they kept talking, Li revealed more. He spoke about the past, things only the Demon King would know, because Brock had once crafted weapons for the Demon King before turning away and siding with the 12 heroes. Their relationship had fallen apart after that, and in the end, the Demon King died alone. Li quoted the exact words the Demon King had once said to Brock. "If only you had helped me until the end, maybe the world would have turned out differently." That shook Brock to the core. Still, he refused to make Li a weapon, not because of who he was, but because he wasn't satisfied with the flame in his forge. If the fire wasn't right, he couldn't forge anything worth using. So he had stopped taking customers entirely. Li just smiled. He raised his hand and summoned it, the true fire of rule over fire. At first, Brock thought he was joking. Then the fire burst out, pure, brilliant, and blazing with absolute authority. It wasn't ordinary magic. It was a flame that ruled. Brock's eyes widened. He stood frozen for a moment. Then, without another word, he nodded. This was the flame he had been waiting for. 1 week later, the weapon was finished. Brock handed it over, saying it wasn't perfect. He had hit his own limits crafting it. He also admitted he couldn't make the shield Lee had asked for. Not yet. But the weapon he'd completed would be more than enough for now. Lee took it in his hands and felt it. It wasn't just a weapon. It was an extension of his authority. Still, Brock warned him. The weapon was incomplete. Compared to Lee's flame, its quality was still too low, but he promised to keep improving it over time. Whenever Lee returned, he would upgrade it again and again. Lee thanked him. He looked forward to working together more. Then Brock noticed something else. The bracelet on Lee's wrist. The one given to him by his sponsor. Brock stared at it for a moment and said something strange. He said the bracelet gave off a bad feeling, as if it had once belonged to something dangerous. Lee had thought the same before, but hearing it from someone like Brock made it more real. Still, there wasn't time to worry. The gate mobilization was just around the corner, and there were only 2 weeks left. Lee pushed himself harder than ever, clearing dungeons non-stop, leveling up every day. He barely slept. He needed to get stronger, fast. Then, the day finally arrived. The North Army Guild had completed all preparations. They were ready to move. Their guildmaster, Choi Young-sang, had officially reached A rank. He stood tall, declaring their next goal: to become the most powerful guild in the country and crush all opposition, to rule as a king. On the other side, Soo-yeon was still worried. She didn't understand why Lee was so eager to go head-to-head with people like them, especially when their guild had a reputation for wiping out anyone who crossed them. Rumor had it, a rival guild once joined them on a raid and never came back. No evidence, no survivors. Still, Lee insisted on going. Soo-yeon tried to talk him out of it, begging him not to take the risk. But Lee told her straight, he wasn't doing this for himself, he was doing it to protect others. That was reason enough. When he arrived at the staging area, he spotted Shang-gu in the crowd. Surprised, he asked why he was there. The League Guild hadn't been invited. Shang-gu replied simply, "You're my friend. Since you're facing the North Army Guild, I couldn't just sit back and do nothing." That was all he needed to say. The two locked eyes with Choi Young-seung across the field. They didn't speak, but everything they needed to say was clear in that stare. Lee could feel it. The man might be officially ranked B, but his aura screamed A rank, a serious threat. At the same time, Shang-gu couldn't help but be amazed. Lee was still leveling up, growing faster and stronger by the day. It felt almost unnatural. Shang-gu promised to stay near the teleportation circle. If Lee didn't make it back, he'd go after the entire North Army Guild himself. Lee called him crazy, but deep down, he was grateful. Then the sirens rang out. All hunters were called to gather and prepare to teleport into the gate. This was it. The same location where Gunter, Choi Young-sung's future self, had once earned his hero title by sacrificing others. The place where countless lives had been lost. Now Lee had returned to that exact spot. This time, things would be different. As the hunters stepped into the teleportation circle, they were instantly transported to the other side, the entrance of the gate. Everyone was still adjusting to the shift when a system notification rang in their ears. The gate had changed. Its magic value was spiking wildly, and its rank had jumped from B class to B+. Just like that. Panic started spreading. No one had expected this. Then another system message appeared. The exit was now sealed. The gate had officially activated its special trait, trapping everyone inside. Magic energy surged all around them, so thick it felt like breathing underwater. Hunters began to sweat, literally and figuratively. The pressure in the air was too intense, and it only got worse. The sponsors started paying attention. With so many incarnations gathered in one spot, the gate's magical density kept climbing, burning away at the hunters' stamina. Their bodies felt like they were being set on fire from the inside. Someone checked the gauge and realized the truth. This gate wasn't just B+. It was close to A rank. And worse, they had no hero-class hunters with them. Everyone started panicking. They weren't ready for this. Hunters began questioning how this could have happened, how the association let a misclassified gate slip through. Meanwhile, the higher-ups from the North Army Guild stayed calm, too calm. They were far away from the crowd, watching in silence. Lee noticed. It was obvious now. They knew this was going to happen. This wasn't an accident. Choi Young-sung stepped forward, pretending to play the role of a hero. He gave a motivational speech, telling everyone not to give in to fear, to unite and fight together. His words were empty, but effective. The crowd, desperate for hope, started to rally. Lee stood back and watched it unfold. He realized something. Choi wasn't giving orders to help anyone. He was giving orders to use people. Young-sung's plan was to sacrifice as many hunters as needed, keep the North Army safe, and come out as the hero at the end. Classic Gunther tactics. His younger brother, Choi Young-soo, whispered that they should stay back and preserve energy. Their master had said the gate would continue spawning waves, so they just had to wait it out. That was the real plan. Meanwhile, Lee and Choi Young-soo locked eyes. In that moment, Choi knew. Lee had seen through everything, and that made him dangerous. Choi ordered Jang In-chung to keep an eye on Lee, If an opportunity came up to eliminate him quietly, he was to take it. He didn't even try to hide the malice behind the command. He just said it was for the sake of the guild. Back on the front lines, the first wave began. Monsters poured in, mermen, strong ones, all A-class. The battle started in chaos. Hunters were all over the place, breaking formation, fighting solo. That only made things worse. The mermen breathed freezing air, knocking out groups of hunters instantly. Lee watched carefully. The hunters weren't working together. They were dropping like flies. He rushed in, shouting orders to pull back, form ranks, and hold the rear. A few listened, surprised that anyone was giving useful directions. But Lee didn't step forward yet. He was still evaluating the battlefield. Then, the North Army Guild made their move. They sent out a few of their own members, the lowest ranked ones, into the front lines to help. It was a setup. Those members were being used as bait to draw out the monsters and give the rest of the North Army an excuse to stay hidden, conserve energy, and appear blameless. And it was working. The other hunters thought they were being helped, not sacrificed. Lee saw right through it. He broke formation and charged into the chaos. Jang and Chung noticed immediately. Lee's words from their earlier conversation came flooding back about how the guild was rotten to the core. Watching it unfold now, In-chung couldn't deny it anymore. Still, part of him wanted to believe the guildmaster had a plan, that this wasn't as evil as it looked. But then everyone turned to look at Lee. With every swing of his spear, he blasted away the mermen, one after another, with unstoppable precision. He wasn't just surviving, he was dominating the battlefield. Hunters around him started whispering, "Who is he? Is that the super rookie? Why wasn't he on the official list?" Even Jang In-chung was stunned. 10 days ago, Lee had been at his level. Now, it wasn't even close. Thanks to Lee's efforts, the first wave ended. A brief rest period was granted, but the tension was still high. Because this was just the beginning, the second and third waves followed quickly. The monsters kept getting stronger, and the hunters more exhausted. Still, Lee held the line. Every time panic spread, he was there, commanding, adapting, fighting. At one point, even young Song seemed impressed. He leaned in and told his brother, "We might have found someone we shouldn't mess with." But Choi Young-soo didn't agree. He thought Lee was just another skilled rookie who'd burn out soon. They decided to keep watching for now. Then came the fourth wave. A giant water golem appeared, towering over everyone. Its magic was unstable and explosive, pure chaos wrapped in a monster's body. It absorbed everything thrown at it and struck back even harder. Many hunters started backing away, but Lee stepped forward. His flames clashed against the water-based creature, fire against water, and yet his authority didn't weaken. If anything, it intensified. Every strike he landed seemed to cancel the golem's magic. The battle turned into a spectacle. Hunters around him stopped fighting just to watch. Some began to cheer, others stared in disbelief, realizing he was doing what an entire squad couldn't manage together. Now, their attention locked fully onto Lee. This wasn't just some talent, this was someone who could shape the future. The fourth wave ended. A notification blinked in front of every hunter. "You have survived 4 waves. The next wave will be the final." Jung-sun couldn't wrap his head around it. How did he get this strong this fast? If you enjoyed the story so far, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for the next video.